what can we expect of this? To former Senator Joe Lieberman, the former independent Connecticut Senator, former Democratic vice presidential candidate back in 2000. Senator, always good seeing you. Do you have any expectations for these hearings tonight?
Well, I mean, I think the big challenge for this committee is to, at a time of enormous partisanship in our government, to deal with an intensely political matter in a way that is bipartisan and that basically tells us what happened, how did it happen on January 6th. I don't think anybody, no matter who you are, could have taken any satisfaction from watching fellow Americans attack our Capitol, threaten the life of the vice president and other elected officials. So truthfully, my preference was that this work be done by an independent, out-of-government, nonpartisan, bipartisan commission like the 9/11 Commission after 9/11. But that wasn't to be, and I think the great challenge now, it's really important to our country, is that this commission conduct this in a way that is factual and not partisan. I think one way to do that, and I think they're going to do it, is to make clear that these hearings are not about who won the 2020 presidential election. They're about what happened on January 6th and how we can make sure nothing like that ever happens again in our country, because it never happened before in American history.
Yeah, and so you always have to ask the question as well. I could see each side politicizing it, but sometimes when a Republican say there's nothing to see here, well, having covered those events and remember what was going on, it's pretty scary, including some of the principal players who now say it's nothing to look at, and yet at the time, with phone calls and conversations back and forth at the White House, they were pretty scared for good reason. So should it just be sloughed off?
No, I mean, this has got to be factual. It's got to be like an investigation that is presenting the facts of what happened. I think that one of the things the bipartisan committee or the commission, January 6th committee, could do to gain credibility, which I gather they may do, is to bring on witnesses or tonight tapes of people who are actually in the White House who are not anti-President Trump, but who will describe a situation that clearly got out of hand and was contrary to the rule of law, which has been one of the basic protections of America. So they've got a challenge ahead of them to make the situation better and not worse. But I think in Benny Thompson and Lynn Cheney, you've got a very effective and responsible duo at the top. This can't come off as anti-Trump, and that's all. It's got to be, how the heck did our government of laws turn out to produce a mob that attacked the Capitol and threatened the lives of people in our government just to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes? I mean, it was outrageous and a nightmare, really, for me and most other Americans, I'm sure.
You know, you start looking at what's at stake tonight and then to present the argument. The big difference with prior hearings, whether they were during the day or at night, I think this is the first time in prime time in the evening. The Watergate hearings largely were during the day, but it was gripping in the summer of '73. But then Richard Nixon was still in office. During the Iran-Contra hearings, Ronald Reagan was still in office. Now, it's a different president in office, and people have now gone on to worry about crime. They've gone on to worry about inflation, what's happening at the gas pump, and that the moment that Democrats might have hoped for here, and others, isn't now. And that it seems to a lot of people who've formed strong opinions, whether they liked the president then, they still like him, whether they hated the president then, they still hate him. Will it change any minds?
Well, I think if they look what we saw with our own eyes on television on January 6th left an impression on everybody. And I hope and believe, whether you thought Trump won the election or Biden won the election, you were horrified by what we saw. That's not America. That's not America that we love. So the aim, I think, of this has to be to set out the facts. It is different, as you said, in the sense that Watergate and Iran-Contra were about presidents who were in office. This one is about a president who's out of office. But this president obviously is at least thinking about running again. So the other cautionary note here is that this can't be seen as an attempt to stop Trump from running again. Whether that happens or it doesn't, as a result of these hearings or anything else, the focus of these hearings, again, really has to be on a bipartisan basis, Americans standing together. How the heck did January 6th happen, and what can we do? What can we learn about it to make sure that we never let anything like this happen again to our great constitutional democracy?
Joe Lieberman, very good catching up with you on this. I did want to pick your brain on what you think's at stake, and you summed it up very, very nicely.